بسم الله والحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه وله. اليوم إن شاء الله نكمل حلقة من حلقات التفسير ونتكلم عن موضوع أسباب النزول. تمام. So inshallah we'll be talking tonight about the subject of شأن النزول, أسباب النزول. طبعا the Quran was revealed in the Arabic language, and the Arabic language existed for probably thousands of years. It's probably one of the oldest, it is one of the richest, and so on and so forth. And حتى العلماء قالوا, some of the ulama, they authored a book, and this book included all the words in the Arabic language for the word lion, the animal. And some of them counted as many as 300, some said 600, some said 1,000 for just lion, right? Saif, another book, the sword, another, hundreds of words. So the Arabic language is so rich, whereas English miskin. I had to deal with this issue when I was working on the Clear Quran translation. The Arabic is so powerful, it's so rich, and the English is so weak and so dumb. So as I always say, I felt like those nights in St. Catherine's when I was breaking my head to come up with the closest meaning to the English, to the Arabic, I feel like I had a big bucket of water that I just wanted to pour in a small cup. So the big bucket of water is like Arabic, and the English is so weak and is so limited. So the Arabic language was there for thousands of years, and nobody even took notice of that language. It was not known, it was not popular, no one cared from outside Arabia, basically. Then the Quran was revealed. The Quran was the medium of the Arabic language, and all of a sudden, the Arabic language became a universal language. And I'm sure if you came from Turkey, if you came from India, Pakistan, if you came from any other language, your local language has in a way or another been influenced by the Arabic language. They have so many words in those languages that came from Arabic, including non-Islamic languages. يعني مثلا Farsi, has so many words from Arabic. Urdu, Turkey, even African countries like Swahili, Hausa, all these languages were affected by Arabic, and also Spanish, because the Muslims stayed there for a long time, and English and French. They have some words. So for the time being, I'm working on a dictionary of the Quran. So in this dictionary, for example, if you are a non-Arab, which is the case for 85% of Muslims, they are not Arab. Only 15% of Muslims are Arab, right? One single country in Southeast Asia, Indonesia, one single non-Arab country has more Muslims than all Arab countries put together. We're talking about 25 countries combined. So Arabs are actually a tiny minority within Islam. So if you're non-Arab and you would like to, you don't like to read translation, you like to read directly from the source, you like to read Arabic, then this book is for you. So alhamdulillah, this is a new approach. It will be released sometime next year if Allah gives us the health and the ability and the time. So this dictionary is a new style, and it will make it easier for you. Maybe in 3 or 4 months, you will be able to master the language of the Quran. A very new style, very easy approach to the Quran. So in the introduction, I listed some of the words in the English language. So for example, if you read these words in the Quran, in Arabic, you know that there is something in between Arabic and English, right? So for example, generally, if you see the word hallucination, this is not in the Quran, I'm just giving you a general example. Hallucination, it comes from the Arabic halwasa, right? I'm not going to talk about scientific things like alcohol and algebra and cotton, because this came from Arabic. You have a word like jariya, girl. The examples are so many, but even in the Quran, I collected about a whole page of words that in the English language that come from the Quran, right? And you see, like, this word is actually it's from the Arabic, it's from the Quran. So I will give you the full list inshallah when the book comes out. But anyway, so these languages were affected by the Arabic language, and so many sciences developed from the Quran. For example, tajweed, where did it come from? From the Quran. القراءات السبعة, the 7 different qira'at or 10 different qira'at. From what? From the Quran. علوم القرآن. From the Quran. You see, for example, calligraphy. It was done because of the Quran. Even algebra, they say that it was developed in part because of the inheritance shares in the Quran. They wanted to decide who takes what, so in part they developed the Quran. Nahw and Sarf and Balagha, they were developed to serve the Quran. And Nasikh wal Mansukh. For example, Asbab al-Nuzul, Shan al-Quran, right? So all of these sciences were developed to serve the Quran. Balagha, rhetoric. It was developed to take these gems from the Quran, Ilm al-Ma'ani, wal-Bayan, wal-Badi' and so on and so forth. It all revolved around the Quran, and without the Quran, we wouldn't have these sciences in Islam. So one of those sciences is Shan al-Nuzul, Asbab al-Nuzul. You can never understand the Quran without understanding Shan al-Nuzul. And this is the focus of this talk in the next 5-7 minutes, inshallah. So Shan al-Nuzul basically will help you understand the historical background of the ayah. يعني أسباب النزول بتوضح لك خلفية نزول الآيات. وربما تجدها في السيرة، ربما تجدها في الأحاديث إلى آخره، إنه في هذا الموقف الفلاني نزلت الآيات على النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم لأنه كان حصل كيت وكيت وكيت. تمام؟ So in the books of Sirah and in the books of Hadith and so on and so forth, they will tell you these ayat were revealed on a particular occasion. If you read the ayah in Arabic or even in Tarjama, and you don't know Sabab al-Nuzul or Shan al-Nuzul, you cannot fully understand the meaning of the ayah. And if this is the case, if you don't fully understand the meaning, you cannot relate to your life. And you cannot understand. And also, if you know the meaning of the ayah or Asbab al-Nuzul or Shan al-Nuzul, it will become easy for you to memorize. The problem with a lot of our brothers and sisters who memorize Quran, memorizing the Quran is one of the greatest things, and you will get the reward in Akhirah and so on and so forth. But it is also important to understand what you are memorizing, right? Because we don't need another copy of the Quran. We already have so many on the shelf. We need people who memorize, but in the meantime they understand and they are able to apply what is in the Quran, right? So one thing to help you understand and memorize the Quran is to understand Sha'nun Nuzul, and you'll be able to relate to your life. And of course there are so many books that have been written on the subject. Jalaluddin al-Suyuti has written a book on Asbab al-Nuzul, Al-Wahidi, Al-Naisaburi. There are different books, and they're amazing. So they are based on hadith and stories from the seerah. They say that this ayah was revealed because of this and this and this, and now it makes perfect sense, because now you get the full picture. So for example, I'm going to give you a few examples of Asbab al-Nuzul to see that it makes it easy to understand the concept or the ayat. So for example, there is an ayah in Surah Ma'idah, and it says, يَا أَيُّهَا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا لَا تَسْأَلُوا عَنْ أَشْيَاءٍ إِن تُبْدَ لَكُمْ تَسُؤْكُمْ. O you who believe, or O you believers, do not ask about things that if they were made known to you, if they were made known to you, they will disturb you. So in other words, mind your own business. Don't ask about something that it has nothing to do with you. Like someone, for example, will come to me and say, okay, what's your mom's name? Well, it's none of your business. You know, how much do you make? You know, what are you cooking for lunch? I mean, why do you ask about these things? You know? So they say in Asbab al-Nuzul that this ayah was revealed because some of the Sahaba would come and ask unnecessary questions. Right? So one of the Sahaba would come and say, Ya Rasulullah, what do I have in my pocket? Yeah, because they knew that the Prophet ﷺ was getting wahyin. So, you know, so they just wanted to have a good time. So some came with some good questions, beneficial, and some came with unnecessary questions. And I share this with the students of the Islamic school here. Some of them come with excellent questions like, inshallah, when we live on the moon, which way will the Qibla be? Okay, when we get there, inshallah, we'll think about this. We'll have mujamma' fiqhi and we'll talk about this. Someone else will say, okay, Sheikh, jinn, do they give birth or lay eggs? Who cares, man? Who cares? And shaitan, when the shaitan whispers to you, does shaitan whisper in the right ear or the left ear? Who cares? You know, doesn't really matter. So they would come, and this is what we have in the books of Asbab al-Nuzul. Some of the Sahaba, Ya Rasulullah, what do I have in my pocket? Or what did I have for breakfast? Or where is my camel? I lost my camel. Do you know where it is? You know? And some would even come and say, Ya Rasulullah, who is my dad? I know my dad, but who really is my dad? So if he told you that this, Ibrahim for example, is your dad, the one you call your dad, is actually your dad, okay. But what if he told you that your dad was somebody else? Your life would be ruined and you would live a miserable life, right? So the Prophet ﷺ told them, okay, why do you guys keep asking all these questions? And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed an ayah in the Quran, if you would like to ask the Prophet ﷺ a question, you have to give sadaqah first. فَقَدِّمُوا بَيْنَ يَدَيْ نَجْوَاكُمْ صَدَقَاتٍ. Now, no one is coming, including those who had good questions, but they didn't have money. So they made it difficult for everyone. Only, this ruling applied only to Ali ibn Abi Talib radiallahu anhu. He had a serious question, he came, he gave sadaqah, and he asked a question. And the Prophet ﷺ realized that some of those who had some good questions, they were shy because they didn't have anything to offer for sadaqah, and they kept the questions for themselves. So you see, when people make things difficult for everyone and they ask unnecessary questions. So keep telling people, you have a beneficial question, ask it, alhamdulillah. But if it's unnecessary or unbeneficial question, don't ask. So on and so forth. Another example we read at the end of Surah Jum'ah. The ayat I just recited in the first rak'ah. وَإِذَا رَأَوْا تِجَارَةً أَوْ لَهْوًا انفَضُّوا إِلَيْهَا وَتَرَكُوكَ قَائِمًا. So if you read the ayat and you don't know the historical background, the ayat would not really make a lot of sense to you. In tarjama or even in tafsir. You have to read Asbab al-Nuzul or Sha'n al-Nuzul. So Sha'n al-Nuzul is, the Prophet ﷺ was in Medina. It was a time of famine. People were starving. And the Prophet ﷺ was giving, the way they did Salatul Jum'ah initially was like Eid. So the Prophet ﷺ would start with Salah, then he would do khutbah at the end. This is what they say in Asbab al-Nuzul. So what happened? The Prophet ﷺ finished the 2 rak'ah Salatul Jum'ah. He was standing there giving the khutbah. And when a caravan came carrying food and stuff from Syria or from Yemen, they would come with a fanfare. Like they have drums and stuff, and you know, nas machine so when the people who were sitting in the masjid for the khutbah, they heard the fanfare, everyone disappeared. They left the Prophet ﷺ almost by himself. Only a couple of people, 5, 6, 7 people, everyone else gone. They went to get some share of the caravan and the fanfare, the amusement. So from that day on, the Prophet ﷺ said, khutbah first, salah last. Because if you prayed, you will excuse yourself and leave anytime you want. But if you listen to the khutbah, even if something is happening outside, you can't leave because you haven't prayed. So this is the way it has been ever since. So when you hear this Sha'n al-Nuzul and the background, this will change your perspective on the ayat and you understand. Even when we're translating the Quran, if you know Sha'n al-Nuzul, it will help you use the right words. Use the right words based on your understanding of Sha'n al-Nuzul. But if you don't know why the ayah was revealed, what it is talking about, you can just use the dictionary word and it doesn't make any sense. And this is true for a lot of translations. They just put words together and they don't really mean anything, right? So we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give us beneficial knowledge and give us what is best in this life and what is best in the next life. ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار. ربنا هب لنا من أزواجنا وذرياتنا قرة أعين واجعلنا للمتقين إماما برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. ربنا اغفر لنا ذنوبنا وكفر عنا سيئاتنا وتوفنا مع الأبرار. ربنا وآتنا ما وعدتنا على رسلك ولا تخزنا يوم القيامة إنك لا تخلف الميعاد. وصلى اللهم على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. جزاكم الله خيرا. السلام عليكم.